Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Signals from Mars, brought to you by the Mars Attacks podcast. I am your host, Victor, and joining me this week is Mr. Brad Dahl. How are you, sir?
Fantastic, man. Thanks for having me, Victor. I really appreciate this.
Absolutely. This is a long time coming. We had talked a lot about doing something together behind the scenes. So once I started hooking everything up and figured out that I needed to use an established situation to do these live streams, I said, well, I need to hook back up with you and talk about everything that you have going on. And obviously, we've chatted back and forth behind the scenes. We kind of met via Mark Striegel's Patreon. We had been, just chatting about videos and just different episodes of the podcast that I do with Mark. And you had talked to me about, the new releases stuff that I do on my site, previously on Talking Rock. But you run a site called Yarg Metal.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I wouldn't say that I run it, but I'm the chief program director. So real quick, you want to hear the story? Is that
that's
in here? Okay,
yeah. That's what I was trying to segue into.
Yeah, this is weird. I'm used to being the one asking the questions. So my brother, who is he's like just an incredible businessman. He starts businesses, and in fact, he's bought this business a couple of years ago called New England Miniature Balls.
Okay.
It sounds like a joke. It sounds like something out of The Simpsons, But and I always say, yeah, says, yeah, your balls are really tiny, but you got a lot of them. So anyway, he buys businesses and then he runs them and eventually sells them or whatever and makes money. He's got a business in the Philippines that's makes cleaning products and stuff. It's called DTL Chemicals. So all that stuff's on the internet if anybody wants to look that up. But anyway, he's my brother Dave. He's 4 years older than me. And he got this idea a few years ago, and he said, "Hey," he says, "I think internet radio is actually the future." Like, okay, cool. So he says, "I'm starting a radio station." So I'm like, "Great, man, that's fantastic." So he did, and then he didn't know what to do other than play Black Sabbath. I mean, he says he has five favorite bands. Let's get this right. He has 5 favorite bands. 4 of them are Black Sabbath. So he was playing like Black Sabbath 24 hours a day. And I said,
Mhm.
dude, there's probably about 5 other guys out there. They're going to just love this. But I'm telling you, I'm thinking you got to mix it up a little bit. So I sent him some music, and he started throwing some other stuff up there. And then it still kind of was like, yeah, it's the same thing over and over. And I told him, I said, hey, how about giving me a shot at this? Let me run the station for a while as far as programming the music and playing
Mhm.
it and that. And because I've got a lot of music. So I started out doing that, and cool enough, people started liking it. I mean, people like it really started catching on. It's worldwide. It's yargmetal.com, and it's Yarg YARG METAL, all one word.com. And you go there. Oh, hey, look at that. That's yeah. There you go. And then you can listen to the music there, and which is kind of cool. But we also, uh, and this is the part because my brother, being older, doesn't quite get the internet and
Mhm.
doesn't quite get how people listen to music and stuff. And I said, dude, we need, you know, people to be able to listen to this on their phones, and we need
Right.
apps. So we got a guy. We had this IT guy who has since just kind of dropped off the face of the earth, and he developed an Apple app, which is still available, thank goodness, and
Okay.
it's still out there. He also developed one for Google stuff on the Google store, but that one for some reason kind of dropped off, and we don't know what's going on with that. And because of that, we now have a new IT guy.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And this guy, hopefully, he's kicking ass. I don't even know if he's listening. But if you're out there, Cody, get to work. Get those apps going. So he's developing new apps for our Apple platform and also for the um, Android platform. And hopefully, we're going to get those out in the next month or so, and they're going to be cooler and funner and all that kind of stuff. He actually upgraded our website there a little bit too, and made it look a little bit better. It was kind of and it was pretty awful before. So the whole idea, well, my idea, my brain idea about what we're going to do with this is number one, play really good music. Okay,
Okay.
music I like, but also there's no. I feel like there's very few platforms for new music out there.
Right.
So I figured that's going to be our real main emphasis. I'm going to be scouring the world for new metal, rock, anything that rocks, man.
Right.
Anybody that's rocking. It doesn't have to be metal. I mean, let's face it. A lot of shows have used the term metal, and then it's kind of like, well, it's whatever it is, and
Right.
but yeah. So I scour out. I thanks to you, I've learned about a lot of new bands in the last
Cool.
couple of years. Thanks to Patreon, your work with me, Mark Striegel, who's awesome. And I've learned about so many different new bands through you guys, and fallen in love with some of them. And I buy their music because that's the other thing. I buy the music, and then I pick songs off of the albums and I play them and I mix them in. And so you're not going to hear, I mean, you'll eventually hear the same stuff. Eventually, you're going to go like 11 days before you're going to hear a song over again.
Right.
There's that much music on there. I've got over 11 days worth of music that's cycling through, and then there's little spots and things. And my goal is to eventually do live broadcasting where I'll
Okay.
do a live show on the air. But I just haven't got to that. You would think with COVID and not being able to go places, I'd have a lot more time, but that hasn't really happened. I don't know how it is for everybody else, but man, I've been busy, busy. Hasn't slowed my work at all, that's for sure. So I have to do this in my spare time. The other cool thing about Yarg Metal, and we've kept this free, the hosting station SecureNet, they look at our numbers and how many people are listening, are like, we really want to play commercials on your station. We could make some real money with you guys. We're like, no, I don't want people. I mean, as a listener, do you like listening to commercials? I don't like listening to
Um,
commercials, and we're not doing it to make money. I mean, my
right.
brother, he's CEO Dave. He's got money. Okay, I've got a real job. I've got money. I mean, I could always use more. So, but yeah, I don't have a problem with that. But yeah, I mean, again, the goal of the station is to promote bands we like and to promote new music and to try to keep rock alive because
Yeah.
as we keep hearing, rock is dead. And yeah, to the rest of the world, rock is dead. But I know there's a lot of people out there that like rock music,
Mhm.
and so yeah, that's the basis of the station.
Yeah, cool. Because I mean, over the years you hear, back on terrestrial radio, it's no repeat workday. And it's like, okay, so you don't repeat the song again between 9 to 5, but you repeat the same 50 songs every day. So, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're going 11 days without hearing the same song, that's so different. That's awesome. Also, as what you're saying with the commercials, on my computer, I've got all types of things to block commercials on YouTube. When I go to watch YouTube on my TV set, it's like, damn, I'm like, I now have to sit through a 2-minute commercial just to get to the content I want to see, or in the middle of a video now. And it's with YouTube, it's ridiculous. They want you to pay $45 a month to not have commercials. So if you're not using it, as a platform to make money, I hear exactly what you're saying. It doesn't make sense to let others come in. And also, one of the biggest problems today with social media and the internet and whatnot is controlling your own message. If you only want to talk about music, if you only want music there, what kind of commercials are they gonna have on there? Is it gonna be for, you know, um,
Boner pills.
right. Well, I was gonna say, hemorrhoid cream, or something like that. Or even if they get into, election time again, do you want to have political, things being broadcast on your station? Maybe you don't want, a political message to appear. There's so many things where once you start adding ads and, someone else's hands in the mix, you start to lose control with things. It just seems so. I mean, I get exactly what you're saying with that.
Yeah. By the way, Jeremy, I see your comment up there, and yeah, give us a listen, and man, let me know what you think. In fact, anybody who listens, let me know what you think. You can contact me. There's so many. I'm all over the place. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and my email's out there. I'm not hard to find. I've got a pretty good digital footprint, and luckily, it hasn't kicked me in the ass yet. So yeah. It's funny talking about politics, though. One of the cool things about doing this radio station is, you know, being a radio guy and, kind of like what you're doing is I've got to meet a lot of the people that I'm fans of, and I've got to interview people. And if you go to we have a YouTube channel, it's Yarg Metal, YouTube, just type in Yarg Metal. And we've done a few interviews. We have a couple of other people that are part of our team that have done some interviews, and some of them are up there, not all of them. But anyway, it's been really cool to be able to go to all these concerts. And I mean, we pay. That's the other thing my brother says. He says, we're doing this to help the bands. We're not doing this to help us. So there's no free
Right.
ride for us. So we're never going to demand that people give us a ticket or anything like that. We're going to pay our way. We're going to buy the CDs. We're going to pay our way to the concert. Of course, if somebody sends me a free CD, I'm not sending it back. So,
Right.
I mean, there have been bands that have done that, and I mean, like, hey, I'm into supporting anybody who's willing to work, or help out and that kind of stuff. So, but going to politics, we had the big. We're in America, okay. Even though we're a worldwide station, we're pumping out of the great state of Utah, which is a crazy place. Uh, my brother got this great idea before the election. He's like, "Hey, why don't we interview one of the presidential candidates?" I'm like, "Yeah, right. Like that's gonna happen." He goes, "No, no, really." And again, my brother, he not only is he an incredible businessman, but he's a go getter, man. He can sell anything.
Hmm.
So he got out there and he got me an interview with the Libertarian presidential candidate,
Oh wow.
Joe Jorgensen. Yeah, and I mean, and it happened like super crazy fast, and I was totally like flustered, prepared, unprepared. It was during the World Series. It was during one of the games. I'm a big Dodger fan because I grew up in Los Angeles. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm watching the game here. And then I got to like set up everything and interview this presidential candidate. And it turned out really cool. I mean, it was really cool
Okay.
because it wasn't a. It was more about like tell me what you guys are into and what you're about and all this kind of stuff and why
Mm.
you want to be president and yeah, you can find that out there. But the crazy thing is, Victor, and I know you and Mark have talked about this. You know, getting hits on your YouTube stuff.
Right.
That thing blew up. I mean, like
Mm.
2,000 views in the first 24 hours. I'm like, well,
Oh, wow.
that's probably it, right? That's going to peak. Next thing you know, it's up to 5, 10,000, 15, 20,000, 25,000. I don't know what it's at now. I haven't looked, but after the
Right.
election, it kind of died off. It's like, holy crap, people really care about politics. So
Mhm.
why don't they vote for better people? Okay, now that's just my 2 cents.
How
Sorry.
different was it for you to interview him as opposed to interviewing a band? You said you were nervous to get ready. W
Yeah.
was the
It's actually she's a woman. I
okay,
think
she my bad.
I'm pretty sure she identifies as a woman.
Okay, my bad.
You have to be careful about that kind of stuff too. I don't
Yeah,
know.
okay.
Do you have a political correctness kind of disclaimer here on Mars Attacks? I'm
Yeah, that's my mistake of not knowing the candidates beyond the 2 big
no,
ones.
that's okay. That's
Completely
okay.
on me.
So yeah, that was super stressful. And I don't know how it is for you interviewing just musicians. I mean, I get totally wound up before I interview somebody because I'm like, and I don't write down questions because I
Mhm.
find that I don't want to just sit there reading questions. I kind of like to ask questions and then kind of see where the conversation goes and kind of feed off of that. And, you
Right.
know, um, and then of course you've probably had this happen too. You do an interview and right afterward you're like, holy crap, I wanted to ask this one thing and I didn't. I screwed it up. And then you kick yourself for like 3 days like, why didn't I ask that one thing I really wanted to know about? Um, so yeah, so interviewing her, we actually had some people ask some questions that were interested. So some people did feed me some questions,
Okay.
and so some of our listeners, believe it or not, and so I use those as kind of something to bounce off of. And plus, as I mean, I don't know where you live, but it no matter where you live, you know that our election this last year was nuts.
Right.
I mean, so hot and so contested and so I mean, it was yeah, it was just like the biggest thing ever. So so there were a lot of things about that, but yet I didn't want it to be the usual thing. It's like I don't want you to tell me what's wrong with the other candidates. I want you to tell me about what's right with you.
Mhm.
And as a citizen of the US, that's kind of what I'm looking for in a person is it's like why should I vote for you? Not why should I not vote for the other
Right.
ass clown.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I guess it was 2 weeks ago, there was a huge snowstorm that blanketed a lot of Spain. Now sections of the country are used to getting snow, but they got 4 feet in, like, Madrid and, like, the city, so it's like getting,
Wow.
4 feet of snow in the middle of New York. Sure, you're prepared for certain things, but not that quantity, overnight. So, instead of trying to figure out, "Okay, let's work together to fix this," let's bicker about whose fault it is. It's kinda what you're saying. Instead of telling me, "Hey, why what do you have going on that's gonna interest me, and what's gonna make me want to why do I think you're gonna solve my problems? Why do I think you're gonna get rid of my headaches?" Instead of, "Well, he called me such and such," we get back to, like, kindergartners bickering about toys and calling each other names, so
Yep. Yeah, it's so true, and it's unbelievable. I mean, even with our current state, situation here in the U.S. Yes, we have a new president. People, shocking, and you think, oh, that's going to just calm everybody down.
right,
That's going to unite us and make us all warm and fuzzy. Guess what? It hasn't. It's
right.
pushed us probably even further apart if that's possible.
Mhm.
And yeah, something's got to change here. I don't know. I don't know what it's like in Spain, but hopefully you guys have got better candidates to vote for there. Probably not,
Well,
but
I think that there's nuttiness when it comes to politics everywhere.
oh,
So,
true. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, you see this in the business world. I mean, who's ever like had a I mean, I'm lucky. I have a boss who's really cool, but that's rare. I mean,
right.
I've worked so many different jobs and almost, it seems like the people who are the real a-holes are the ones who want to be in charge. And so they get there because it's people like me that just don't, I just want to have fun and do my thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't want to be in charge. I just want to do the work. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I think it's the same thing in politics, and it's the same thing with other stuff. It's like they don't get in it for the right reason.
Mhm. Yeah, it's funny. I recently, well, I just posted an interview I did right before the elections with Phil Rind of Sacred Reich,
Oh,
and one of the things that he said to me was, "People don't quit jobs. People quit being around asshole bosses." So,
yeah.
that's totally, on the money.
Wow, nailed it. Yeah, good one. Good one, Phil. Phil, is that who it is, Phil?
Phil, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I need to get in touch with. I need to listen to some Sacred Reich. Here's the other thing. There are so many bands. Okay,
Yeah,
it's like and there's so much music. I have so much new music I haven't even started to listen to yet.
right.
I probably have over 50 CDs that I haven't even listened to yet.
Mhm.
And I don't know, how do you listen to music? What I mean, like physically, how do you actually sit down and listen to music, or where do you do that?
Um, usually I I set everything up in my computer. Like if I'm sent a CD, I usually convert it to MP3 so that I can throw it into a playlist on my phone. I have a playlist that's called "Things to Listen to,"
Nice.
and it's split up into, if it's full albums, it's full albums. There's another one that's just singles, where I'm sent just a single by a PR person or a label, and it's just single songs by different bands that I listen to. And then from there, if there's something that really catches my ear, it's like it goes up into another tier. It goes into another playlist of things that I listen to on a regular basis. And then if it's really, a quote unquote earworm, then there's a playlist that I listen to almost constantly. It's like my default playlist where, if I'm gonna be in the car and I can't really pay attention to something, if I'm driving my kids around, okay, well, this is the playlist that I'm gonna listen to because I know I like everything on there. I can sing along, I can listen in on the conversation while also appreciating the music. If there's something new that I get, I really either want to be, at my computer, or I want to be in my car. I want to be someplace where I can, really put my headphones on, or I've got a good set of speakers and I can really listen to it and really, examine what it is, and similar to what you're saying, a lot of times I post, you know, um, there's so much stuff out there. A lot of times I post, okay, well, this is a band that's new to me, because there's so much stuff out there. I start to research a band that I start to like a new album and realize, well, they've been around for 20 years, but this is the first time I've heard anything from them because, a PR person or a label made it come my way, or it's, a suggestion out there. Um, and I go out and I check it out. And with the new releases that I do on my site, it helps me find different things. And although I'm not posting all that music on Mark's Patreon anymore, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy finding new bands or promoting bands
Yeah,
who've been around
yeah.
that I like. So I started my own Patreon to continue to do that stuff. And Jeremy, who's following us here and who's chimed in
How you
via the
doing,
chat.
Jeremy?
Yeah, him, Mike Jones, and Steve Hoker, who are my some of my patrons that carried over from Mark's Patreon. They're constantly commenting on stuff, and it's funny because there are things that they point out all the time too, like, music is great, but the lyrics kill it for me because the lyrics suck, or stuff like that. So it's funny. There will be something that I like, and it's like, oh shit, now I got to go back and really pay attention to the lyrics. So, um, yeah.
All right, so
So
you're using your phone to drive the music you're listening to for the most part, correct?
for the most part, but one of the things that I have done, and I use the phone out of convenience, out of being able to just listen to something in any
Oh
given
yeah,
situation.
yeah.
If I know I'm gonna be at home, um, and if I really like something, I'll end up picking up the vinyl and I'll just throw it on my the sound system that I've set up at home. or stereo, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I'll listen to it that way.
So, and here's a little Armored Saint plug. End of the attention span. I found as I've gotten older, I mean, it's really hard for me to actually sit down and listen to an album anymore. I mean, I've got some really good equipment for listening to stuff,
Mm.
but if I sit down and try to listen to something, it's only like 5 minutes before somebody's pulling me one way or the other, and then
Right,
that's the end of listening for me. So it's really hard for me to do that. I've kind of gotten the habit now where I just throw everything onto my phone and I just throw it into random and let my phone kind of just pick songs here and there, and that way it
right,
mixes it up. And so I'm kind of like, well, so man, some way my phone programs things. But
right. Well, I'm similar with that. With two small kids, you throw
yeah,
something on, and then in the middle of you're really getting into something, and then in the middle of it, hey, I don't know how to do this division, so you got to pause it and run out. So at least if I have it on the phone, if I have it, I'm listening to it in headphones, I can turn it down a little and go up and help them or whatever. So it's I guess one of the strong points about being able to leverage technology and your love of music at the same time.
yeah, yeah. Back when I was actually going to work. Now I work mostly from home, but I had like an hour commute each way pretty much. And so
Right,
that gave me 2 hours a day to listen to stuff in the car. I find the car a really great place to listen to things because you don't have any distractions.
right,
It's just like you just drive and but but in my new car, it doesn't even have a CD player. So it's not like I can, I buy a
right.
CD. I don't even know why I still buy CDs because like, where am I going to listen to this at? Am I going to go sit in a theater and listen to this? Again, 5 minutes and then something else is pulling me one direction. So anyway, that's the struggle is real for me. I have a hard time
Yeah,
like focusing on a whole album and sticking with a whole album, but I try. When bands I really like come out with new things, I'll put it in, and I'm just going to listen to this. That's all I'm going to listen to, and it's to get through like from first track to the last track, almost impossible.
right. Well, and also you have to think about that Armored Saint album is a great example because it's really strong from beginning to end.
Oh yeah,
Um, there are other things that with everything that's sent to us, not everything is even remotely close to that. I can honestly say there's maybe 4 or 5 albums that I could do that with from last year. Although there's, maybe 400 songs that I have in my 2020 playlist. It's just that there are certain albums that all the way through are stronger. So yeah. So I mean, what you're saying makes sense. A lot of times I also take, a playlist, just throw it on shuffle and whatever comes up, comes up. The only time that I honestly listen to things straight through is if I want to hear something, the first few times to try to gauge what songs, I like the best. And if I'm going to write something up for new releases on it. So then I'll listen to it all the way through to be able to have something to talk about. But once I've, listed a few times, it gets broken up into these various playlists that I have.
yeah. Which, by the way, I have to plug your website, MarsAttacksRadio.com. Your reviews are really good. Okay, the way and I mean, just your description of the music. You talk about really what the CD is or what yeah, you describe the music very well. It's and so when I read one of your reviews, I'm like, okay, I want to listen to that. And not like some of these people that are writers and they spend like they spend about 80% of the review talking about things the band did 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, I don't know what school you guys went to for your writing stuff, but tell me about, let's just focus on, again, into the attention span. Tell me about what this album is about. Tell me, I don't want to hear about their album 30 years ago.
Right.
Let's talk about this album. And so anyway, you do a fantastic job at that. So I guess
Well,
I
I
got to get
appreciate
on your Patreon thing so I can start checking out all the new music again, because that is a really great thing. So if anybody's listening here, yeah, Victor's new music that he used to post on the Talking Metal Patreon or Mark Striegel Patreon. Uh, yeah, I'm going to join up. I'm in, Victor.
cool. Awesome. Yeah, and just for people that aren't familiar with what I do with the new releases, today I posted about Dead Daisy's new album, Holy Ground, which surprised me because I wasn't expecting to go into that liking it, because I like some of the stuff that they've released, but I, wasn't really sold on it. I like with Black County Communion or Black Country Communion,
Yeah.
excuse me, with the Glenn Hughes stuff, it's okay. I'd almost prefer his
Yeah.
solo stuff, or
Yeah.
it's you've got so many talented people, but there's no one really like trying to really show off what they have going on. Like with that band, I want I want to hear Bonamassa like go off. I want to hear, Derek Sheridan do like this ridiculous keyboard solo. And it's almost like you're building towards it, but it never, you never get it. This Dead Daisies, I really like Karabi. And once I heard that Glenn Hughes was coming in, I was like, well, I don't know, just something else with Glenn Hughes on it. And I gotta tell you, exactly what you're saying, and I don't know if it's the combination of him and Doug Aldrich again, who's worked with him in the past, but they've made the band heavier. It's really got some swagger that Glenn Hughes really adds to it. So, I really think it's something worth checking out. And, when I do write about stuff, I always try to go towards stuff that wows me or that I really like, because I do get a lot of different reviews. And if there's something that even I've never heard of, and maybe someone didn't send me a promo for it, but I find it on a site, that lists maybe other releases that are coming out that I'm not aware of, I want to help promote that band. So I will post about that stuff.
Cool.
I also posted about Damon Johnson and the Get Ready. They just released
What a
Battle
cool
Lesson
dude
is the
too, man.
album.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
want to hear I want to hear both those albums.
yeah,
Um
what I've heard, I mean, the Damon Johnson stuff, this first single, the riff to it, you've got the Frank Bello bass behind you. I mean, it could, I was listening to I'm a huge Anthrax fan. They're one of my all-time favorite bands. But I've been listening to a lot of Cheap Trick lately and noticing like a lot of similarities in like guitar parts and stuff where I think Scott Ian and Charlie Benante, one writing, really take that 70s Cheap Trick influence and really make it their own. And I think that if you listen to the riff off of this Damon Johnson song, it really harkens back to that. I mean, it could easily be that or like a Priest song or something, just the way that the song really develops. And then finally it kicks into like, one of his melodies. He's ridiculous at doing that stuff. And the other album that I feature is the new Jason Bieler album. Again, if you just know him from, Love Is on the Way and Saigon Kick and stuff like that, this is really going to surprise people because it's got a lot of special guests on it. It's got, it really has an all-star lineup. And it's funny, I was going to make the comparison about how he's like someone who's very similar to Devin Townsend in just some of his quirkiness and just some of like his progressive nature. And yeah, I start to read the liner notes and Devin Townsend is on the album. So, it makes a lot of sense. I could definitely see them working more together like in the future because, they have a lot of like similar humor and different things that really aren't, just 4/4. They're really mixing things up to really bring something else to the table. So let's see. We have Jeremy chiming in here. So for everyone that's either watching this live or watching the replay, Jeremy says the Patreon is very useful for new stuff. Glad to hear you will join us, Brad. So cool.
I'm in, man.
And
In the mail.
and Jeremy also says, got to listen to all those albums. Jeremy, so you've got to, as you have to listen to them, or you've already gotten to listen to them. Let's see if he responds back. But yeah, so
I plan to get all three of those albums actually. The Jason Bieler, I really didn't know much about him. The Saigon Kick thing. I know you and Mark are probably about 10 years younger than me or more.
okay.
And so you guys spent a lot of your musical development in the '90s, right?
Um, I mean, I've been listening to music since I was 4, since like about 77. So
You have good parents. Oh, yeah,
I've
good.
I'm lucky to have a brother that was like 5 years older than me. That
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
that's good.
my first musical recollection. Mark actually posted something on Patreon today about different live albums by Kiss,
Mhm.
and out of the poll, I selected Kiss Alive 2 only because that's the first thing I've ever listened to as a kid. That was the first thing. I mean, I got to see there was I always forget the name. There was that booklet that had like the evolution of Kiss or the evolution of something. I forget the name. And it shows them in their different costumes over the years, and then it shows you each individual member. And at 4 years old, I remember seeing the page on Ace Frehley and going, "What is this? This is like the Super Friends meets music," and I was hooked. You know, and
Uh, yeah,
so
see, but my point is that okay, so you like Kiss Alive 2 better, which I'm gonna go one because that was my first. I mean, my wasn't my first Kiss album, but that was probably the first one I actually bought. Uh, and that's it's when you're forming your musical. I don't know what's the word I'm looking for. Throw me a bone here.
yeah,
When you're building up your library of music that you're into and that's moving you, I mean that's usually the form and that sticks with you.
right,
And so it's like typically the first album that you get into, and then you kind of everything else is judged on that. Uh,
right.
yeah. So Kiss. Oh, the other interesting thing about Kiss, and one of my questions when I interview some musicians is, how did you even get into music? Like, what was the first thing that really sparked your interest? I mean,
Hmm.
my generation, or just a little bit older than me, it's always the Beatles. I call it the
Right.
Beatles moment. It's like when I saw the Beatles on TV, that's when I knew I wanted to do that. I wanted to be a musician.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna say for like me and you younger guys, it's Kiss.
Hmm.
It
Right.
Kiss is what really got us into music. And I was a big music fan before Kiss, but Kiss certainly I mean, as far as being a bass player, I mean, I learned how to play bass by getting that first album, the very first Kiss album,
Hmm.
and playing along with it. And
Right.
the funny thing is that I'm like, this is the stupidest music I've ever like tried to play because it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make sense where they're playing this on the instrument. And then
Hmm.
it took me a while to figure out that they tuned down a half step. Like, now it all makes sense.
Right.
Which which that's a question I've always wanted to ask somebody, and I'm kind of feeling like Ace probably had something to do with this. Is like, why were you guys tuning down a half step? What was the whole idea there? I mean, were you
Right.
guys already planning on not being able to hit the high notes 20 years later, and so you figured you'd tune down now? No.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it was Ace because I think it's a Jimi Hendrix thing. I don't know if you know any of the history of tuning down. Do you know that? Because you're a
I
drummer. You probably don't tune your drums down, right?
No, I don't. But with my guitars, I have various guitars at different. They're tuned differently.
Yeah.
They're tuned, and I can't read music. I used to be able to read music. I can read percussion music, but I can't read. You know, music for guitar or piano or anything like that. But all I know is that I do have certain things tuned down a half step. Certain things, I have another guitar where it's tuned down, where the low E is tuned to D. And then I also have a tuning that Motley Crue used on "Shout at the Devil," which was the the low E is tuned down to B, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I don't remember, everything else. I have it, on my computer somewhere what that tuning is, and a lot of times if I forget, I'll go in and look for it online. One of these things where after having kids, I haven't been able to play as much as I want to, but I'm hoping that changes soon because they're starting to get interested in wanting to play, and they want me to teach them how to play some things. So we'll see.
Very cool.
You've played quite a bit though over the years, because I mean I've seen your pictures and stuff with you playing with different bands and whatnot. Um, and you're from LA, you're saying originally.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
um,
that's what I wanted to do. I mean, I got into music, bought my first bass on my 15th birthday,
okay.
um, as like a SG copy. I've got every bass I've ever had still. I've got like,
Oh wow.
more than 10 basses there somewhere. Um, but so I started. I mean, when I was in the third grade, back then music was a big part of school, and
Hmm.
so they had an assembly, and they brought this guy out, and he was like trying to like, hey, you guys can join the orchestra, the band, or whatever, and here's the
Right.
instruments. And guy got up there and he played the big stand-up bass, and doom, 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 he's just walking on a thing. I'm like, holy crap, that spoke to me. I'm like, I want to do that. So of course I go up afterward. I go, I want to play that instrument. And he said, no, you're too small. It's like, crap. And I was little. I didn't start growing until I was like 17 or 18, but at least I did grow. So, and
Right.
of course, as you get older, you kind of grow differently. Um, but so yeah, so I started. So he said, well, you can play the violin. So he gave me a violin, and I learned to play that. And the cool thing, and it's like violin, that's like a girly instrument, right? But as I learned in junior high, yeah, there's a lot of good looking girls playing the violin. So the orchestra was a good place to be for somebody like me that wasn't cool and suave as a youngster. I mean,
Hmm.
it was the closest I could get to a girl. And so that kept me going. But then when I guess I was 14, and my brother, again, older brothers are great. Other than them beating your ass all the time, they're great for the music stuff. So my brother has this friend who's really great guitar player, and he came over and he brought a bass with him.
Hmm.
I'm like, what? Can I play that? Can I try it? And he said, yeah. So he started jamming some stuff, and I started just kind of following along with him. And I was sold. I was like, dude, I want to do this so bad. So yeah, I bought this bass off a guy for $100,
Hmm.
and I was on my way, and I learned to play by putting on albums. Like I said, the Kiss album was it. I
Right.
put that on, and I learned to play that whole first album, and so I learned by ear, even though I can read music, because I did along the way. I played the piano, and you had to learn to read music, and so I'm glad I can read
Right.
music, but
Hmm.
I don't know what notes I'm playing on the bass because I play totally by ear, which really sucks if you're doing a gig and the monitors are bad and you can't hear yourself, and like,
Hmm.
holy crap, am I playing the right thing? I don't know. Yeah, one of the running gags in a band I was in the 80s is the leader would stop the song and he'd go, Brad, what note are we playing? And I'd be like, I don't know, it's this one. What is this note? It's like, yeah, that's an A. Okay, cool. All right, let's keep playing then. Yeah. So yeah, if I have to think about what note I'm playing when I play bass, I can't play. I actually play with this
Right.
bluegrass band, which they are so good. Bluegrass, not my thing. Okay,
Hmm.
not even in a million years. Would I listen to it? Never. But this guy, they invited me to play with them, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll come jam with you guys. And they are really good. They're really good musicians.
Hmm.
And so the fun thing for me was that there was no music. There's no songs to listen to. They would play, and so then I would have to come up with a bass part and play along with them. And that has been that has been a lot of fun for me playing with those guys, and they're just good dudes. And yeah, with the fact that might have been the last gig I've played before COVID, was playing with those guys, and I played with them for well over 20 years now. And it's funny that they keep asking me to come play with them. It's like, why do you want this rock guy playing in your bluegrass outfit? I don't fit, not at all.
Right.
But yeah, but it's fun. I've learned over the years to appreciate all different kinds of music. As a teenager, that's another thing. When I was a teenager, I was a snob, man. There were like four bands I liked, and that's it. Everything else
Mhm.
sucked, and I wouldn't even just like, oh, that sucks, man. I've opened up my appreciation of music over the years, and playing different things in different bands. And yeah, I don't shun anything anymore. I mean, certainly if I don't like something, I don't like it, but I'm not going to say, oh, that
Right.
sucks. Although there's a lot of things that do suck.
Yeah, for me it was kind of similar, because I started playing concert band in third grade as well, and I gravitated to playing the snare. That was all you could you could play at that age. And then from there, you got to middle school, and well, now you can play either the snare or the bass drum, or you could play, some other percussion instrument, a triangle or a cymbal or something like that. So it's funny. I was thinking about this not long ago and hearing about people talking about, well, if you want to become a professional drummer, you have to learn how to play to a metronome. And I was thinking, I've never played to a metronome before. And, I've recorded stuff at home and I've played, I've jammed with bands and whatnot. And I started thinking back, I'm like, well, I've played with a conductor who is technically a human metronome. So I wouldn't have, an issue, that big of an issue with, in comparison to maybe somebody else that hasn't been in that type of an environment, because obviously the conductors, especially for a percussion player, is usually trying to slow you down to fit in with everything else that's going on. But and similar deal, growing up, you start playing marches, and you start playing different things that are out of the wheelhouse. It's not Kiss, it's not this, it's not that. But then you start to play certain things and you're like, oh, wow, Richie Blackmore actually took a passage from this song and made it part of his solo, or Hendrix took a little piece from this, and and then it all kind of starts to make sense. And similar to what you're saying, there's different kinds of music that maybe initially you said, I'm never listening to that, I don't like that. And then you realize, you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I can't wait to play this song because this is the one that sounds like, this track off of Machine Head by Deep Purple. So I get what you're saying.
It's music. I don't know. Music's the best. I think that's a Frank Zappa quote, but music is the best, and that and dogs. So, I don't even know where I'm going with this now. So I can read music, but I can't translate it to bass or guitar. I have to play what I hear, and
Right.
but anyway, so I grew up in LA. So in the 70s, that's what I wanted to do. I decided I'm going to be a rock star. And
Right.
it was kind of like a Twisted Sister video when I was in school, because I was kind of a smart kid, but I never did homework or anything. I just
Mhm.
goofed off, but I was still putting all the advanced placement classes with all
Mhm.
the nerds. And I remember my math class, I think it was my sophomore year, my teacher just started yelling at me. She's just like, you need to start doing stuff. You need to start applying yourself. And he's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to become when you grow up? And I said, a rock star. And she just hit her head on the desk. And this is years before Twisted Sister. So,
Right.
yeah. And my chemistry teacher, the same thing. Yeah. If she could see me now, my physics teacher, he said, there's no way you'll make it in college. He says, there's no possible way you can get a college degree. He says, so just give that up right now. He says, you don't have the study skills. You just can't do it. And of course, here I sit and I have a doctorate. Ha! Take that. Of course, I've also learned that if people really want me to do something, they tell me I can't do it. And
Mhm.
that really makes me want to do something. But so I was trying to become a professional musician. I mean, I played, the whole party scene in the 70s,
Mhm.
the backyard party scene in the LA area, which was awesome. I mean, God, that was so much fun. It was just, somebody's parents were out of town, and so it'd be like, hey, we're having a party and then we need a band, and it's like, well, let's get your band. And my band got to be a pretty hot thing, and so we were playing constantly, and it was hard rock, and it was fantastic. And you'd basically play until the cops showed up. That's usually
Right.
what happened. And the best part was when they come with a helicopter. So you'd be out there in the backyard and you'd be just rocking out, and all of a sudden this big spotlight from the sky would hit you, and you're just like, oh man, this is what it'd be like playing the LA Forum.
Right.
Spotlight on you. And then the cool thing is then the cops would come in, and of course they just beat everybody up and haul everybody out of there. But they're always cool to the band. As long
Oh,
as
wow.
you're holding your guitar, they're like, oh, you're in the band, you're cool, you don't have to leave, you're all right. Like,
Right.
thank you, officer.
Did you ever get to cross paths with any band that ended up being, or anyone from a band that ended up being famous from that scene?
That is a great question, and I know that I know that I did, but I didn't know, a lot of those people. I guarantee that I was somewhere where Van Halen played. Okay,
Okay.
but I didn't know that was them. I mean, it doesn't stand out. Again, I don't know, I was kind of a jerk when I was a teenager. I like all other bands sucked. My band was the only good
Right.
band, and there were a couple of bands you'd go see and be like, yeah, those guys are really good, and I would actually go to, I'd see they're playing a party, I'd go see them, and which was the other cool thing about being in a band. You'd show up at a party and they go, "Oh, that's the guy from that band. Come on in." You wouldn't have to pay. It's like, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. So the '70s were great. Oh, I do know a guy. Okay, from my high school, but he
Okay.
wasn't. He was in a band, but he was in the high school band, and he was a drummer.
Okay.
And he was a kid that we used to make fun of, and he was a couple years younger than me.
Hmm.
And his name was Tommy Bass. And
Okay.
the drummer in my band, actually, Tommy Bass is like, you guys are like a real rock band, and I really want to play. I don't want to just play the snare or whatever. And so my drummer was getting ready to buy a new drum kit, and he said, "Well, I'll sell you my drums." So Tommy Bass and his dad comes over to the house, and he looks at the drums, and they were awful. They were Crown drums. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
They're like
Hmm.
they're like a knockoff of a knockoff kind of a thing. They were
Yeah.
awful
Yeah.
drums. And so he ended up buying my drummer, whose name is Ed Bazoe, totally cool dude. Bought his drums. So that was Tommy Bass's first drum set. So fast forward to like 10 years later, and I
Mhm.
run into Ed, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you remember that kid? That's Tommy Lee of Motley Crue." I'm like, "No way! There's no way that kid turned into Tommy Lee." Well,
Right.
guess what? He did. So there's somebody that actually went to my high school that is bigger than big.
There
And
you go.
yeah, yeah. So there is somebody, but as far as the bands, I mean, and they were really good bands. That was a really cool thing about our high school too. When we
Mhm.
had dances, they had bands. There was none of this
Right.
DJ crap. They always had bands, and they were rock bands, and they were
Mhm.
really good bands. So we're talking about like 75, 76, and that kind of thing. And some of the bands that come in, it'd just be like, oh my gosh, it'd be like, oh, these guys are so good. The singer's so good, the guitar player's so good. In fact, that I'm a big UFO fan. The first time I heard a
Right.
UFO song was at a high school dance.
Oh
These
wow.
guys came out and they played Shoot Shoot. And I'm like,
Cool.
I had to go up to him afterwards. I'm like, holy crap, what was that song you played? And the guy said, oh, it's yeah, this new band UFO. And so yeah, I had to go out and get that album, Force It, which by the way, my favorite UFO album. If you don't have
Cool.
it, you should. And yeah, so a lot of those guys probably did become somebody.
Mhm.
Obviously, I didn't. I
How
mean,
many?
I'm not. I
How
don't
many
have
of
a.
them can say they have a doctorate?
Yeah, there you go. Well, I got to the point where all my buddies who were musicians,
Right.
they didn't have any money. I mean, everybody was basically crashing on their girlfriend's sofa or whatever. And
Mhm.
I got to the point where I'm like, I kind of want a house. I kind of want a car. I
Mhm.
want stuff. I kind of want a good life. And got this crazy idea to go to college, and it actually worked out. So there you go. I went to college. That's how I ended up in Utah, because I couldn't afford to go to school in California
Mhm.
because it was too expensive to live there. I mean, every penny I made at every little job I had went into rent and food and paying the car payment and all that kind of stuff. I had no money for anything. And so somebody said, "Well, Utah's got a really good pharmacy program, and they're really cheap." Back then they were. Now it's
Mhm.
not. Sorry, kids. We wrecked the world for you guys who want to go to college now. So I moved up here, and I swore I would leave the second I graduated. I'm like, holy crap, Utah is like the most backward, crazy, boring, awful place, and uh, and here I am, 37 years later, I'm still here. Oh my
Right.
gosh. Yeah. And then I'd given up. I'd like, okay, I'm giving up the whole music thing. I'm giving up being a rock star. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to become a pharmacist. And, uh, and I thought, well, maybe I can find a band here, like a cover band or something, make some money on the side or something in between studying. And I ran into these guys. I put up the sign in the music store, with the little pull tabs and stuff. And these guys called me like, "Hey, we're looking for a bass player." And I'm like, "Cool. What are you guys doing?" And I said, "Well, we're doing original music." I'm like, oh man, that sounds, yeah, that ain't gonna make any money. But I went and jammed with them anyway. And you know what? It was really good. And those guys, oh, it was so good. So this is 1984.
Hmm.
And it wasn't hard rock or anything. It was really different. It was something like I'd never heard before. It was, they call it modern music. And it was just two other guys, guitar player who sang and a drummer. And it was so I they wanted me to play with them. I'm like, okay, you guys got something going here. I'll play with you. And we did play a lot of gigs. We made money, but we decided every single penny that we made was going to go into a band fund that we're going to use to record.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We saved up all that money and we went into a recording studio and we met this guy uh, who ran the studio, and he fell in love with us. And he was like, I really like you guys. And he produced us. We cut three songs, and then he's like, I really think you guys can do something with this, so let's do some more songs, write some more songs. And then we got to the point where we would go in after hours when the recording studio wasn't working, so we'd show up at like 11 p.m. and we'd be there till 6 in the morning working on our stuff, and he would just let us do it for free. And it was cool time. So then I'm like, holy crap, I'm getting ready to apply to pharmacy school. I can't apply and then drop out if this really happens, because we're sending stuff out to record companies and we're getting
Right.
letters back. And the letters weren't just like, yeah, we're not interested. The letters were, yeah, we're really interested, but we want to hear more music. Like, holy crap. So we got to record more music. So we kept doing that. And my wife, who is the best wife in the world, she says, why don't you drop out of school for 2 years, give it 2 years.
Hmm.
I'm like, yeah, okay. So I quit school right before applying to pharmacy school. I dropped out and did music full time for 2 years, and it was the best ever. I mean, wake up in the morning and all you got to do is think about, okay, I got these songs we're working on. I'm going to write these parts for it, and I did all the keyboard stuff for the music because we didn't have a keyboard player, and we
Hmm.
recorded. A lot of our stuff had keyboards, and because since I had the piano background. And yeah, so we just wrote music and recorded and stuff for a couple of years, and the problem was that we got contracts. Every contract we had given to us, we had to sell the rights to our songs. Well, our singer, he wrote all the songs. He's like, there's no way I'm selling my songs. I'm not giving them to him. I'm not doing it. And we're like,
Right.
of course, me and the drummer are like, well, Corey, why not? Why not give them, man? We want to be rock stars,
Right.
And yeah, so that didn't happen because of that, because nobody was offering a contract where we could retain rights to our music. So I got to the end of that 2 years. I'm like, I'm going back to school. I got
Mhm.
to my wonderful wife, who's been working and supporting both of us for all these years. I can't ask her to keep doing that. She's the best. So
Right.
I'm going to go to school and I'm going to get a real job. So I did. I quit the music scene, went back to school. When I got into the doctorate program, those guys came back to me and said, hey, we're still playing, any chance you can play with us some more? And I'm like, yeah, now that I'm in the doctorate program, I've already got here. Like, yeah, I'll do it. And so I
Mhm.
played with them for a few more years, and then they finally fell out of it, which is too bad. And then I just found other things to do. So now I just played with bands. Anybody calls me, I'm a bass player for hire, and I've played with a lot of different bands since then. And it's just for fun. If somebody gives me money, that's great, but they don't have to, because hey, I got money. I got my own money. I don't need to play for money. So it's kind of a bonus for me. I get to do what I love, and I got a great job and make good money. So life is good. That
Cool.
was probably more than you wanted to hear.
No, I mean that's awesome because I also want to ask you about um, if you want to talk a little bit about your interesting day job because you do have some stories that I'm sure some people may be interested in hearing, especially given all the COVID stuff that's come up. I'm sure
Oh
you've
yeah.
received some interesting questions. Can we say what you do for your day job?
Oh yeah, totally. So yeah, but as part of the doctorate program, they said, okay, you're gonna have to spend 6 weeks in the poison control center. And I had never heard of a poison. I'm like, what the hell is that?
Hmm.
And they said, well, it's, you take calls from people, and who've been poisoned or whatever. And I'm thinking, well, I mean, how many people in Utah get poisoned every day? What, 5, 10 people? It can't be, and it just sounds awful talking to people on the phone. So I went in there as a student, and I just fell in love with it because it's just incredible. Yeah, I mean, at that time we were getting well over 100 calls a day,
Hmm.
and it's like every call was an adventure. I mean, just the craziest, most bizarre things you've ever heard people do. You're just like, wow, you did what? and and yeah, so I really got into that. So when I graduated, they wanted me to work there, and I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And that's where I've been working for about 30 years now, working for a poison control center. So I work on the phones. I do a lot of other things too. I'm a faculty member at the College of Pharmacy, and so I do teaching,
Mhm,
and I really enjoy that. But it's nice because it's a assistant adjunct assistant professor position, so I don't have
mhm.
to deal with all the BS of the college. It's
Right.
like they keep sending me stuff. Hey, we're having a meeting. So good, have fun, guys, because I ain't gonna be there. Yeah, so I don't have to deal with all that crap. And I love teaching. I don't know. I love teaching students. But so yeah, so poison control is a wonderful odd thing. And I mean, I don't know what people's perception is, but I mean, basically anything you can put on your body, in your body, around your body, it can be a poison. And I've
Mhm.
seen, like I said, people do just unbelievable, ridiculous things. And so I don't know. I mean, we've kind of gone an hour here. That's probably pretty long. I don't want to tie this up too much. But like one of the great things that provides a lot of great stories is super glue.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, fun with super glue. Here's my thing with super glue. Okay, if I'm trying to put something together and I'm using super glue, there's no way in hell it's going to stay together. It's going to fall apart.
Right.
But yet, I can guarantee you, if you put super glue on your finger and you stick your finger up your nose, it ain't going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah, because I had this kid call me up. He called up. I think he was like 15 years old, and he was crying. And he's like, man, he kind of sound like this. He's like, man, I'm in trouble. I don't know what's going on. And I said, dude, what happened? And he says, well, this is my older brother, because again, older brothers, as cool as they are with the music, they can really be mean too. So his older brother told him that he could get high from sniffing super glue.
Oh boy.
So instead of just sniffing it, he actually shot the super glue up his nose. So when he shot it up his nose, it started dripping down, and he put his thumb there to kind of stop it. And it wasn't before long that his thumb was stuck to his nose. So that's why he sounded so weird on the phone. He's like, and
Right.
he was crying because he said, my mom is going to be home in like 10 minutes, and she's going to know what I was doing, and I don't need, like, dude, relax. You're going to be okay.
Mhm.
Everybody does stupid things when they're teenagers. Everybody does stupid things when they're older too, because we get a lot of that. Uh, so I told him, I said, look, here's the beautiful thing with super glue. Your skin turns over so fast. I mean, the cells in your body are constantly replicating, and especially your skin. And I said, it'll come off within a day. Okay. Probably by
Right.
tomorrow morning. So, I mean, there's really nothing you can put on it that's safe to put on your nose or whatever. If you're just getting your fingers apart, there's things you can do. But as far as your nose goes, no, I'm not going to put any, make it worse. That's always what my mantra is: don't make things worse. Let's make things better. So I said, dude, just go to bed. It's kind of late in the evening. Just tell your mom you're really tired. Go to bed. And then I bet you it'll come off by the morning. And by golly, it did. But I did have a woman call me up once about something else. It wasn't she was calling about her kid getting into something, but she'd been doing something with super glue and she spilt some on the kitchen floor.
Mhm.
And so we're talking and we go through all the thing about what her kid got into. I can't even remember what it was. It was some medicine or something. And so I helped her with her kid, and he's like, yeah, your kid's going to be fine. She says, okay. And she goes, uh-oh, I got a problem here. And I was, what's that? She says, well, I've been standing in this little puddle of super glue and my foot's now glued to the floor. So she'd also got super glue on her hand. And now this is back in the old days when we were using landlines. So
Right.
she had the receiver to the phone glued to her hand. She had her foot glued to the floor.
Okay.
And yeah, so yeah, that that was a great one. So yeah, it was. We had to go through some tricks to take care of that. Had to unhook. See, this is the part I love about my job. I get to problem solve. It's like every call's like, okay, how do I solve this guy's problem? So it's
Mhm.
like, okay, remove the cord from the phone. Okay, we're gonna go over the sink. We're gonna use hot water because you got to use heat. Okay,
Mhm.
you got to soften that stuff up with heat. So you get really hot water. And of course, well, I can't get to the sink because my foot's glued to the floor. Okay, well, we're gonna have to deal with that then. We're gonna. Is there anybody else in the house that can help you? No, my husband's not home. My kids. And anyway, yeah. So we went through various gyrations. We did get her taken care of. One other quick super glue story. This woman was getting ready to leave work, and she went in to talk to her boss, and her boss was doing something with super glue, and some had spilled on the desk, and so she was kind of leaning on the desk, and she was getting ready to go, and her hand was glued to the edge of the desk. She couldn't get her hand off, and she had somewhere she had to be. It was really, really important. So they were freaking out, and they're calling up, "What are we doing?" And in the meantime, her boss got a saw, and he actually cut off the edge of the desk. So she left with the edge of the desk glued to her hand, and she just
Okay.
ran out of there. She's like, "I gotta go." So, yeah. So there you go. There's some fun with super glue stories.
Last question before we wrap things up here. With the advent of COVID,
oh yeah,
have the calls ramped up with people trying to take different things to prevent getting COVID or thinking that they have COVID, so they've taken something to try to, remedy the solution.
Yes. Yeah, and you thought when our beloved president back then made the joke about drinking cleaning products and things like that, you thought, oh, people are going to realize that's a bad idea. Well, no, people have done that. and not a lot, thank goodness, but there,
Right.
I've had those calls. Luckily, most cleaning products you're going to buy over the counter, in a grocery store or something, aren't that harsh and they're not that dangerous.
Right.
So luckily, I haven't seen anything really, really bad happen. But I've seen people inject stuff into their veins, thinking that would help, like rubbing alcohol and stuff like that.
Right.
And that's not good. Surprisingly enough, the human body is just an incredible instrument. And wow, I hear a dog barking. It's almost like we're at the Striegel house. I love it when Mark loses his crap over the noise in the background, because you almost can the listener can almost never hear it, and he just loses it, like
right.
It's like, dude, that's part of life, man. I don't know how it's so quiet at your house. Oh, it's because it's after midnight, right? Everybody's in bed.
Right. It's 1 a.m. But also I have a compressor on, and the noise gate, so that it helps. So even if I am recording something, and I mean the washing machine and the dryer are 10 feet away from me, but I have implements in place so that even if that's the case, you don't hear that noise, or it's kept to a minimum. Or yesterday I recorded the stuff that I recorded. My kids were around, so I was hearing them screaming upstairs about something, and I listened back to the recordings, and it was it was nowhere to be found, or at least my deaf ears didn't hear it. So
right, yeah, that's what I love about this mic that I'm using. Which, man, if Mark saw this, he'd probably want to buy it. So he's always looking for a new mic. This thing, it doesn't pick up well, away from it. You have to kind of get right up on it. So it's nice for doing this kind of thing. Yeah, I was doing an interview with Bill Leverty of Firehouse, and all of a sudden I hear this coming, through the headphones. I'm like, holy crap, what's going on there? And he goes, oh, somebody's opening the garage door. He goes, hang on.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And that makes what, an EV2?
I don't even know what is this thing? It's something I got from this place called Full Compass, and they it was like a $400 mic, and they had it on sale for $60. And I'm like,
oh wow.
Yeah. The Scottish part of me was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna save some money here. And this thing's been fantastic. So I can't tell you what brand it is. I'll check it out later. My eyes are not good enough to read it. But it's been a really, really good mic. Before then, I used to just use what I'd sing out of, to do stuff, and then you'd have to get the the screen, the pop screen, and all that kind of crap. This thing doesn't. It seems to do a pretty good job at not popping and hissing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's pretty good deal. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I've had to update my setup over the last few weeks, because of different
the Barry White thing.
Yeah, and luckily now, so I kind of did this when we came on, but so I got what's called a Rodecaster. Specifically, it's a mixing board that has like it allows you to connect it with your computer and actually work as like a sound card, and it allows you to mix together a lot of different things that I had through separate components that have been basically breaking down. And I started doing the math the other day, and I'm like, okay, well, when I put everything else together before, between the mixer and the compressors and the gate, and this and that. And, I'm like, okay, so it costs kind of the same. So it's time to upgrade. But, it allows me to do something like this.
I love it. I love it.
So,
Yeah,
um,
that's cool.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
gear-
so we're both trying to improve what we do, and
yeah,
that's a good thing. And yeah, because I there's nothing worse than an awful sounding podcast.
yeah,
God,
absolutely.
oh, I yeah, when I started listening to podcasts, most of them were awful. I'm like, I
Right.
can't listen to this. I just can't listen to this.
Mhm.
You gotta have decent quality. So there you go. I'm kind of, again, a bit of a snob that way. I like
Yeah.
things that sound good.
No,
And
but I mean, I get it. I mean, I've been podcasting for 11 years now, and it's a similar deal. If someone could have a great show, great content, but if it sounds like they're recording it on, an old cordless phone with a ton of static and, whatnot, that deters from
oh
whatever
yeah,
it is that they're trying to do, I just can't listen to it either. There are little things like you're saying. If you hear a dog bark or if you hear like a kid run in or something like that, okay, well, what are you going to do?
chill. Yeah.
But I mean, if you're consciously doing 20 episodes and you've got this like ridiculous humming sound in your mic, well, then that's kind of unforgivable.
Yeah. So,
So
but back to COVID really quick.
yeah,
Yeah, COVID has really changed the dynamics. And then not funny part of it is there are more people who are really having a hard time coping with this COVID world. And
okay,
so our intentional overdoses, people trying to hurt themselves by
hmm.
overdosing, has gone way up.
Wow,
And so that's actually a huge, I mean, it used to be less than 5% of our calls, and I don't know what it is. I haven't crunched the numbers from last year yet, but I feel like, I mean, we're up to like 20+% of our calls now are people overdosing on purpose. So if anybody's listening out there and you're having a rough time, hey, I'm here for you, man. Hit me up, hit me up. I'm happy to chat or whatever. Life's good, man. Let's all stick around and have fun. Let's listen to music. Let's laugh and have a good time. Life, you can overcome everything. Yeah, that's what
absolutely,
I say. You never know what I always tell people when they call me up before they take an overdose. I said, dude, don't do that, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. Tomorrow might
right,
be like something incredibly awesome, and you don't want to miss that. So
right,
stick around and see. Life might be crap today, but tomorrow, hey, it could get better, and maybe it'll take a while to get really better for you. Um, because I've had people tell me, it's like, well, they list all their problems, and I'm like, yeah, your life does suck, but I don't want anybody to die. So,
right,
and yeah, so yeah, but also part of the COVID thing, because when it first hit, the state wasn't really ready for this kind of a thing. They didn't have the infrastructure
mhm.
or the people to deal with, how to deal with, get out information to people. So Poison Center jumped in there and said, well, we got people, we're 24/7, we're here. So we took over all the COVID calls. So that blew us up. And so, yeah, the first night when things went sideways, I just worked a shift, and then I was on my way home and I got a call saying, you got to come back. We need somebody here overnight. And I'm like, well, can I go home and eat something? So yeah, so I went
right.
back, spent the entire night there. And thank you, whoever that was. That was
That's
it's a very nice thing to say. Yeah, I think, yeah, as somebody who's had to fight for my life a couple of different times, I've almost died a couple of times. I love
mhm.
life, and yeah, it's not like I don't have problems. I have problems, but
Right.
life is good, man. And yeah, maybe we'll just end with that. It's like everybody should stick around to listen to the next Mars Attacks podcast. Everybody should stick around to listen to those new albums that are coming out, or listen to something really old that you really like, man. Listen to
Yeah.
music, man. Do something fun.
Mhm.
And hit me up on Facebook or Twitter or something if you want to chat or whatever, man. I'm always here for you. So,
There you go. And I want to give one final plug to Yarg Metal here. Check
oh,
out.
thank you. Hey, look what we're playing here. TNN. Anybody ever buy that album? I did. Access denied. That's
I th-
appropriate, isn't it?
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. I
I
can
think
see somebody like opening up the website and they see access denied and they're like, oh, I guess I can't listen.
right. the I think what I've listened to off of that album the most is probably their remake of the song "Kiss of Death" with Ripper Owens
Yeah.
on vocals.
Yeah,
So
yeah. See, it's funny because I like the originals, the stuff that's not the Dawkins stuff better. 'Cause I listen to the Dawkins stuff. I'm like, again, what we're used to, what we
right.
grew up with, what we like, and it's like sometimes, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. We could get into the whole remake of the first Lynch Mob album and a restyling of that. Have you listened to that?
Which version? Because he's done it
No,
twice
no,
already.
no, it's that's what I mean. The new one. Have you listened to the new one?
No,
What's
but
it called? What's it called? Wicked
yeah,
Sensation.
yeah, I know what
Something.
you're referring to. But
Yeah.
back in the early 2000s, he did the same thing already. He
He did?
detuned everything. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There,
How did I miss that?
he's got an album called it's Lynch Mob. It's called Rev
Oh,
Revolutions, I think it is,
yeah.
or something
Okay.
along those lines. And if you've ever heard Anthony Esposito talk about some of his issues with Lynch Mob, it was because the last thing that he played on with Lynch Mob was he came back and they re-recorded all that stuff, tuned it down, because that was what was popular at the time.
Right.
And it's Robert Mason on vocals, and it's
Okay.
the first. It's everything is pretty much off of the first two albums, except they do also do Paris is Burning, and they do a ballad that was off of the third Lynch Mob album, which was the total new metal swerve there. But
Yeah.
there's things off of that by making it heavier sounds kind of cool. But the new stuff that they did where they reimagined the entire Wicked Sensation
Yeah.
album, I don't know, man. The vocals sound just so lazy to me. It just, I listen to it and I'm like, I love the original. And I'm not, I'm, again, being that I've played in, various bands where you interpret older pieces of music and you do different things based on who the players are. So I can get kind of that aspect of it. But it's just the songs are just stripped of the original fire. Had they have done something that was energetic and brought something to the table that wasn't kind of like, all right, guys, just send us the check. It's done. Here's what we got. It's like, all right, you even hear the chorus to Wicked Sensation. The original is like such an anthem, and you hear the new thing, and it's like it's almost as if Oni's like in a reclining chair, going, "Yeah, got the Wicked Sensation." It's like,
Oh, jeez.
really, it's
All
that.
right.
That's
Well, there.
something we will address in the future. I plan to have you back on here.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's do this again, man. This is
Yeah,
fun. This is it's fun to talk about music. I'll wheel out some better Poison stories, some really bizarre stuff.
there you go. And what I do want to do, one last round of applause for not only Brad,
Thank you. Thank you.
but I do want to give a round of applause to Jeremy, who is one of my patrons, who is always here on Friday nights. My cousin Jose, who's usually here as well, who chimed in before as well. He's usually always on here as well. And I want to thank anyone who's gonna not only who's not only seeing this live, but whoever gets to listen to this in the podcast format or checks this out on YouTube or Periscope or Twitch later on, if you get to catch one of the replays. I appreciate anyone that checks out anything that I release. So thank you. Thank you again, Brad. We will do this again. And
yeah, there's room for all of us. I mean, this is not a competition. We're all on the same team here. We all like rock music, and we all want to share it with people and talk about it. So you can listen to Yarg Metal, 2 hours a day, and listen to Mars Attacks, right afterward.
There you go. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've always felt that way.
Cheers.
As well.
By the way, this is not Dash vodka. I'm sorry for all the Striegel stuff, but I mean, let's face it, Striegel runs through us, right?
There you go.
It's so no, this is water from my well. So
there you go.
True. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. Enjoy
okay,
it.
guys.
Thank you, Victor.
Yep. Thank you, Brad, and thanks everyone for checking this out. We will see you next time right here on the Signals from Mars,
No,
live
they have
stream.
been happy. Yeah.
See you guys.